Okay, people. We're moving along here. We're on chapter 11, accurate thought. To put it in perspective, the next one, it doesn't always line up like this, but accurate thought and concentration. You're concentrating because in order to have accurate thought, you've got to concentrate. In order to concentrate, you're probably concentrating because you've got a definite chief aim. You've tapped into your core self. And in doing so, basically tapping into your core self, who you are, Briggs-Myers typology test, all that stuff, right? You've tapped into your core self, you've defined your core self, you know who you are, your basic, innate, natural tendencies, skills, came to this earth with them, desires, leanings, inclinations, all that good stuff, right? That's what you're going with. Focusing on your strengths, limiting your weaknesses and all that good stuff, right? You understand yourself, then you build your definite chief aim, right? And you always have mastermind people to help you. And as you're doing that, as you're following this path, the proper path, right? You're probably going to get, all of these are probably going to begin to fall in place more or less. Self-confidence will build, initiative and leadership will probably become more natural. Thick-faced black heart, which I will do later on, is about how these things that are in you are there from the outset. Thick-faced black heart, or thick-faced black heart, that concept, which has been around 100 years or so, similar to this one. Good ideas have been around for some time, and they last. That's another thing. Good ideas last. Thick-faced black heart, or Ching Chu's thick-faced black heart, speaks to the concept that these principles, these desires, a lot of what's in you. Once you start to tap into it, you move into the proper directions, right? Things start to fall in place. Some of these things have to become a conscious effort. But if you are following the path that you're working towards your innate self, projecting you're projecting from inside who you are, who you really are, right? And then and only then should you build and define a definite chief aim, right? So anyways, you start to build self-confidence, initiative and leadership becomes more of an innate or natural thing. You begin to tap into your imagination, your intuition, I guess you could say. You build enthusiasm. I'm just going through the list of lessons or chapters here. You build enthusiasm because you're on the right path, that type of thing. Self-control, that probably has to be a little more, that doesn't come naturally. It has to be a little more manufactured, I guess we could say. Same thing with habit of doing more, but that has a little bit of a, because you're following the right path, tendency to it, right? And you, of course, pleasing personality, that's probably going to be there somewhat, but you can definitely consciously build on that as well, right? Then we get to accurate thought. Then we finish up with concentration, cooperation, failure. We talk about failure, tolerance, golden rule, right? So let's move from here. Let's see where we go. It is pardonable to tell your friends by tactful suggestion of your needs, but take care not to ask them outright for assistance if you would retain their friendship. True. Friends, family, I guess you could throw in there too, right? That's an interesting point. Very accurate. Anyways, this is at one and the same time the most important and most interesting, most difficult to present lessons of an entire course on the law of success, right? Accurate thought. Interesting. Well, as a critical thinker, one who locks in on key words and phrases, when I see absolutes, I've talked about this before, most good thinkers, experienced thinkers, logical thinkers, rigorous thinkers, know that absolutes are rarely true. It always rains. It never does this. People are always this way. This always happens. This never happens, right? So here, Is it one of the same? The most important, most is an absolute, right? Most interesting, most difficult. So it looks like there's a lot going on here. There's something, probably one of the reasons why it was kept till later in the lessons, right? It's not really a fundamental or foundational element of the law of success. I mean it is, but it's tangential to the basic core elements that are probably more upfront, with chief aim, mastermind, and all those that are earlier in the book. Anyways, it's important because it deals with the principle which runs through the entire course. It's interesting for the same reason. It is difficult to present for the reason that it will carry the average student far beyond the boundary line of his common experiences and into a realm of thought in which he is not accustomed to dwell. True, accurate thought, I can tell you from accurate thought, critical thinking, logical thinking, rigorous thinking, precise thinking, thinking with precision, all of that. I teach critical thinking, accurate thought, logic, and all that good stuff, argumentation and so forth. And it's difficult. It takes a lot. It's a concerted effort over a lengthy period of time, and it takes a lot of effort, blood, sweat, tears, to become good at it, to do it well. So I'll have to agree with that statement, right? Most students who take my critical thinking classes, especially my hardcore term-driven critical thinking classes, not a lot of A's. Sure, there are some, but that's where, if I'm teaching a course, that's where the lower marks occur. Not a preponderance or a plethora. Look up those words. But a good number. It's probably the most challenging course that I teach, for sure. So I have to agree with what Hill is saying here. Unless you study this lesson with an open mind, you will miss the very keystone to the arch of this course. The keystone is, whenever you're building something, is the foundational stone, or the first stone that's set, right? Like the cornerstone of a building. And without this stone, you can never complete your temple of success. I like that. This lesson will bring you a conception of thought which may carry you far above the level to which you have risen by the evolutionary process to which you have been subjected to in the past. And for this reason, you should not be disappointed if at first reading do not fully understand it. True. Most of us disbelieve that which we cannot understand. And it is with knowledge of this human tendency in mind that I caution you against closing your mind if you do not grasp all that is in this lesson of the first reading. I would have to say, reading anything of great depth and complexity, such as the law of success in 16 lessons, takes a lot. There's a lot here, even in one chapter. Never mind 16 chapters, over 1,100 pages. There's a lot there. So then he goes into an example here, right? Accurate thought, I'm at the break at the bottom there, after his evidence or example. Accurate thought involves two fundamentals which all who indulge in it must observe. First, to think accurately, you must separate facts from mere information. True. There is much information available to you that is not based upon facts. More so today than ever before. This is nearly 100 years ago. Didn't have the internet. With the advent of the internet, social media, YouTube, there's more and more sources coming forth. It used to be limited by the number of people that had money that could create organizations of communication, right? And I'm talking about maybe, the news media, mostly, more specifically, but also, communicating through any means possible, right? Today, you have, your social media influencers. You have people who are talking about presenting on all different types of subjects and projects and things, right? So now there's way more information. You hear fake news, trying to discern or decipher what's wrong and what's right, or what's accurate, I should say, what's accurate and inaccurate. It's hard to do. And there's also the complexity of fields, regardless of how much information you have out there. Some fields, some endeavors are just complex. And I was just talking about this the other day. Economics. The number of inputs or factors and moving parts in economics. Just the United States alone, never mind the world where there's billions of people, but just in the United States alone, you have roughly 330 million people making choices that are somewhat influenced by commonalities, people being people, humans being human, needs being needs, human needs being human needs. But at the same time, we're all still individuals, right? And individuals have a tendency to make choices that differ to a degree, sometimes more differentiation than others, or greater difference at sometimes than other times, for sure. But trying to predict who is going to buy what at what time, at what level or amounts, and it's crazy. It's difficult. There are literally thousands, tens of thousands, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of inputs into an economy. Then you get something like climate. If you understand climate, same thing there. There are literally thousands of inputs. And I'm not talking about people who don't understand, who are not climate physicists or true climate scientists. You get a lot of people in the media, in the news, into entertainment, a lot of hacks, a lot of wannabes and shouldn't be's, couldn't be's, never gonna be's. And very rarely do you actually hear pure climate scientists come forth and speak. They're just not the ones that usually present on climate and the complexities therein, right? So that's an issue. Our physiology, very, very, very complex, I know. Because I've been in the hospital, I've been in for cancer and heart attack, and the number of questions asked by my physician. I remember by the time a few months had passed, when I was dealing with my cancer, my doctor literally had, the stack of papers. He was constantly asking me questions, probing into the what, where, why, hows of my disease, and do you want to do this? You want to try this? You want to try that? You want to try this methodology? How about this drug? How about this procedure? How about this, that, and the other? And he told me, and many doctors have told me, that we generally have a handful of ways in which we can get you back to norm, the standard, right? The norm or the standard of where your physiology should lie. We have certain potions and medications and procedures and remedies and so forth to help you get back to normal, live a normal life. But how each person is going to be affected, or how each person is going to be treated, is quite a variation, right? That's why a physician has a practice. It doesn't say I'm an expert. It doesn't say doctor expert. No, it's the doctor's practice. It's almost like he's always practicing, and a physician, the emergency room physician told me one time. He says, yeah, we have a handful of ways in which we know things we can do that can kind of get you back up to where you need to be, right? As far as your temperature, your blood flow, and other things, right? Digestion and so forth, right? But most of the time, we just don't know. We have a small subset of things we can do, but most of the time, 90% of the time, we just don't know, right? So they're practicing on what? Someone who is a patient. That should tell you everything, right? So it's very difficult to, just like trying to achieve. There's no one way. There's no one person. Everybody who comes to this material, some are going to be into it, some are really going to study it and pull something of significance and important impact and depth and merit from this. Most will not. The occasional one will. And then one who applies it and actually does something with, their life is even more rare, right? Anyways, it's a bit of off on a tangent there, but nevertheless useful, I hope. Accurate thought involves two fundamentals which all indulge in must observe. First, to think accurately must separate facts from mere information, much that's complex in itself, much more difficult, easier to say than do. There's much information available to you that is not based upon facts. Second, you must separate facts into two classes, namely the important, unimportant, or the relevant, irrelevant. Only by doing so can you think clearly. All facts which you can use the attainment of your definite chief aim are important and relevant. All that you cannot use are unimportant and irrelevant. A lot of people spend a lot of time. A lot of people don't discipline themselves. They don't spend time on the important and relevant. They watch TV and get off on a tangent. They get on the social media, get off on a tangent. They get onto, and I see it all the time. People getting onto, comment sections in a video or a written post or something, and just going on and on and on needlessly about something that's really relatively insignificant to their needs or to the needs of the general population, and arguing endlessly and going into minute detail and arguing and trying to be one-up, constant one-upsmanship, where I'm going to prove to you that I'm smarter and better and more right, and I'll beat you down till I win, and then I'm going to feel good, better about myself. Yeah, but most of the stuff that they argue or focus on. That's why, the more and more time I spend on most social media, the less and less time I spend. Because most of it is pointless, irrelevant, right? And it's social media, right? Just like socializing. Socializing is used as a distraction. It's a way to relax. It should be. Not always true, right? People get very uptight on the end. It should be a way, a distraction, time off. I'm just going to go watch TV or go on to social media, get a little distraction and get away from work and family and all the other stuff that I have to do during the day. And I'm just going to hopefully find some distraction and fun. Doesn't always happen. That's another thing. People waste a lot of time on stuff that they don't need to be wasting time on, so many things to do. Anyways, it is mainly the neglect of some to make this distinction, which accounts for the chasm, not chasm, chasm, which separates so widely people who appear to have equal ability and who have had equal opportunity. Without going outside of your own circle of acquaintances, you can point to one or more, who have had no greater opportunity than you have had, who appear to have no more, or perhaps less ability than you, who are achieving far greater success. You wonder why? Search diligently and will discover that all such people have acquired the habit of combining and using the important facts which affect their line of work. Far from working harder than you, that's a good one, they are perhaps working less and with greater ease. This is one thing that I teach all the time, right? Sure, you have to work hard in the beginning because you're at ground zero. You don't know anything. You haven't acquired knowledge. You haven't acquired experience. You're kind of an empty vessel, right? You got to fill up that emptiness with work and effort and experience and research and reading and blah, 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 right? But after time, you better find a way to make things easier for yourself, not harder, not working harder. So working hard at first is great, but as you move forward, become more successful, you should be working less, right? By virtue of their having learned the secret of separating the important facts from the unimportant, and this is what I was kind of talking about, the weeding out the stuff that is useless with the stuff that's useful, right? They have provided themselves with a sort of fulcrum. Fulcrum is like this, the fulcrum point, a balancing point. They are providing themselves with a sort of fulcrum and lever with which they can move with their little fingers, loads that you cannot budge. with the entire weight of your body. The person who forms the habit of directing his attention to the important facts, out of which he is constructing his temple of success, thereby provides himself with the power which may be likened to a trip hammer, which strikes a 10-ton blow as compared to a tack hammer, which strikes a 1-pound blow. I know a tack hammer. I don't know what a trip hammer is. Anyways, yeah, so that's true. And I kind of go over this in my coaching and my lessons. Then he goes in that you may understand the importance of distinguishing between facts and mere information. Study that type of man who is guided entirely by that which he hears. The type who is influenced by all the whisperings of the winds of gossip. Here you go, right? That accepts without analysis all that he reads in newspapers. I was just talking to somebody about this today, right? And judges other by what their enemies and competitors and contemporaries say about that, right? In order to be a good thinker, a good critical thinker, a good discerner of what's useful and not useful, right? It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of skepticism, not skeptical in the sense that everything is a conspiracy theory. Everybody's out there to deceive, that's not what I mean. Skeptical is, well, I don't know. Let me pause. I just read something that somebody said online about somebody who reported about what they said about somebody who's repeating somebody else said about that somebody some time ago, right? And people will often at times hear something, maybe a friend or family, maybe on TV, radio, wherever, right? On internet, or read something and just, boom, that's truth. I read once, or I heard once, or somebody said once. That's anecdotal evidence. That's just one time. And if you don't know anything else about that issue or what's going on in great depth, especially if it's complex, I heard one time that people who graduate from college, on average, will make $1 million more than people who just graduate from high school. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is possible. I've been hearing that. That's been going around for decades, right? There's something called inflation, a devaluing of the dollar, right? Salaries have been stagnating for the last 30 years. So there's a lot of things that have changed and are continuing to change that make that statement about as inaccurate as it can be. And also, if you have a college degree, there's a, I don't want to say the myriad, but there's dozens of different types of college degrees out there, right? If you get a degree in the STEM field, if you get a 2-year degree, or maybe I'll say a 2-year degree. I don't know about certificates, but 2-year degree. Many 2-year degrees in the STEM fields outpay many 4-year degrees, right? If you get a degree in the aerodynamics of the philosophies and aerodynamics of a pie plate, you get a PhD in that, whatever the hell that is. How far is that going to take, right? So you really got to be careful, really got to be careful, right? Search out your circle of acquaintances and pick out one of this type as an example to keep before your mind while we are on this subject. Observe that this person usually begins his conversation with such terms as, I see by the papers, or they say, right? Or, do you know that you can earn $1 million, on average, you can earn $1 million more in a working lifetime by earning a bachelor's degree than you can by just earning a high school diploma. Now, there was even no they or the papers in that statement. It was just a very generic, general statement. Why do you believe that? Where the hell did that come from? Maybe the source initially was wrong even. There's a lot of stuff floating out there that's common knowledge or people commonly believe that's wrong. That's one of them, right? The accurate thinker knows that the newspapers are not always accurate, and that's become even more so these years, right? And he also knows that what they say, I have no idea who they are, right, usually carries more falsehood than truth. If you have not risen above the I see the papers and they say class, you have still far to go before you become an accurate thinker. Oh, so true. Most thinkers out there, from the people I run into in public, through family, friends, through work, through my classes, through online exposure, most 80, 90% more, maybe. Terrible. Whereas the great Charles Barkley once said, terrible thinkers, right? Of course, much truth, many facts travel in guise of idle gossip, newspaper reports, but the accurate thinker will not accept as such all that he sees and hears, right? Good point. I've seen that one before. The law of evidence varies according to the subject, second paragraph, and circumstances with which it is used, but you will not go far wrong with it. But you will not go far wrong if, in the absence of that which you know to be facts, you form your judgments on the hypothesis that only that part of the evidence before you which furthers your own interests without working any harder on others is based upon facts. This is a crucial and important point in this lesson. Therefore, I wish to be sure that you do not pass it by lightly. Many a man mistakes, knowingly or otherwise, expediency for fact. Expediency is just getting something done for the sake of finishing, right? Expedient. So, expedient, what is that thing? I was going to look it up. Expedients, expedients.com, is that what it is? I can't find it. But anyways, expedient is like the concept of being convenient and practical, very convenient, very practical, despite being improper or immoral, right? It was done with great expediency, right? There's usually a lot of times I think of that word and I think of like political expediency, right? That type of thing, right? Where it's convenient, practical. It's convenient, practical. It's easy. It's kind of the easy path to take, but it's also immoral and corrupt, right? That type of thing. Doing a thing or refraining from doing it for the sole reason that his action furthers his own interest without consideration as to whether it interferes with the rights of others, right? No matter how regrettable, it is true that most thinking of today, even up to today, 100 years later, far from being accurate, is based upon the sole foundation of expediency. It is amazing to the more advanced student of accurate thought how many people there are who are honest when it is profitable to them, but find myriads is like a lot of facts, to justify themselves in following a dishonest course when that course seems to be the more profitable or advantageous, right? So expedience is doing that which is easy, quick, but usually, not honest, not moral, that type of thing. Last two sentences. The accurate thinker adopts a standard by which she guides themselves, and he follows that standards at all times, whether it works always to his immediate advantage or carries him now and then through the fields of a disadvantage, right? The accurate thinker deals with facts, regardless of how they affect his own interests. True. For he knows that ultimately this policy will bring him out on top, in full possession of the object of his definite chief aim. There it is, right? I talked earlier about how definite chief aim or your goal is tied into accurate thinking. And if you're trying to honestly, rigorously get something done, you're usually going about it with an honest intent, honest heart, right? So you don't want to do anything, don't want to be expedient in any way. Just go the easy route, even though it's a moral wrong, lying, cheating, stealing. It's easier. He understands the soundness of the philosophy that the old philosopher Croesus had in mind when he said, There is a wheel on which the affairs of men revolve, and its mechanism is such that it prevents any man from being always fortunate. The accurate thinker has but one standard by which he conducts himself in his intercourse, conversations with his fellow human, and that standard is observed by him or her as faithfully when it brings temporary disadvantage as it is when it brings outstanding advantage. For being an accurate thinker, one knows that by the law of averages, one will be more than regain at some future time, that which he loses by applying a standard to his own temporary detriment. You might as well begin to prepare yourself to understand that it requires the staunchest and most unshakable character become an accurate thinker. There you go, right? For you can see that this is where the reasoning of this lesson is. So again, one element or principle or concept that is running throughout this law of success, or these laws of success, is the fact that one needs to be, and I've mentioned this before, Boy Scout, Girl Scout, honest, forthright, plain, brave, clean, reverent. Because you can lie and cheat and backstab and steal and be expedient, take shortcuts and whatnot. And it might even work out for a while, but in the long run, you think you're going to last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years trying to get stuff by people. In searching for facts, it's often necessary to gather them through the sole source of knowledge and experience of others. True. It then becomes necessary to examine carefully both the evidence submitted and the person for whom the evidence comes. And this goes on more and more, on and on, I should say. But yeah, I cover this in my material, and I'd rather go use mine than what he has here, but I can finish out for you. Another point that's interesting is towards the bottom, second to last full paragraph. Some very able men, people, probably men even back then, have not yet risen above this vulgar, self-destructive habit of belittling their enemies. And this is what the infantile and small-minded and the petty, infantile, small-minded, and petty do. You'll see that one fan, a group of fans will do this to other fans, sometimes one athlete to another. Real professional athletes really kind of avoid this type of crap. Right? Competitors and contemporaries, I wish to bring this common tendency to your attention with all possible emphasis because it is a tendency that is fatal to accurate thinking. Before you can become an accurate thinker, you must understand and make allowance for the fact that the moment a man or a woman, good, there he is finally, begins to assume leadership in any walk of life, the slanders begin to circulate rumors and subtle whisperings reflecting upon his or her character. I mean, that's common. You see it a lot online. I don't know why. Well, it's kind of a natural. Humans do that by default because it's easy to do, right? Slander and lie, manipulate, right? Rather than being honest, right? It's tougher to be honest. It's tougher to get up on time every day. It's tougher to go to the gym than stay at home. It's tougher to eat right than not eat right. Anything that is tough or difficult or challenging to do right once or many times over and over and over usually has some merit to it or some importance to it, right? That which is easy to do, immoral, unethical, slovenly, usually it's not strength. It's working. It's going to. I don't want to even say working, but it's going to a weakness, right? You want to work to a strength and avoid weakness. But we do not have to go back to our first president. So now he's bringing in some examples, Woodrow Wilson, right? And the examples go forth. At the break there, what do we got? With the supposition that these hints are sufficient to impress upon your mind the importance of searching for facts until you're reasonably sure that you have found them, we will take up the question of organizing, classifying, and using these facts. Again, this is not something I'm going to get into because it's not part of my program. Man who knows what he is working. I saw self-confidence. I just want to read this. Let's see, yeah. Always got to look at all the names: Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Solomon, Moses, Christ, right? Big names when you're talking about the ethical, the moral, the philosophical, theological. Where was I? Oh yeah. The man who knows that he is working with facts goes at this task with a feeling of self-confidence, which enables him to refrain from temporizing. That's a nice word. Hesitating or waiting to make sure this is ground. He knows in advance what the outcome of his efforts will be. Therefore, he moves more rapidly and accomplishes more than does the man who must feel his way, right? Because he is not sure. That's great. You generally don't want to just feel your way, kind of wing it, kind of improv all the time. You're going to have some plan, some understanding. And, you know, again, if you're starting out, you're young, you're inexperienced, so be it. But as you move forward, you want to acquire more experience. You want to learn stuff. You want to read as much as you can about stuff that's relevant to you, right? In your experience, in your needs. What I've read or what other people have read is not necessarily related to who you are, your experience, your path, your needs, your road of achievement, right? Path of achievement. Mr. Rockefeller, now we got another example, Thomas A. Edison. Then we got a break point at the bottom. Up to this point, we have been discussing only one factor of accurate thought, that which is based upon deductive reasoning. You have inductive, deductive, right? You're reasoning from inside out to the outside in, right? That type of thing. Perhaps this is the point at which some of the students of this course will have to think along lines with which they are not familiar. Where we come now to the discussion of thought, which does much more than gather, organize, and combine thoughts. Let us call this creative thought. Creative thought. There you go. There's a whole. I don't even know if I need to get into this. I can kind of work you through this within my program. I have a critical, creative, intuitive thinking. There's a whole chapter or a couple chapters in my book on achievement. All right. On my book of achievement that talks about critical, creative, intuitive thinking, right? Critical thinking is kind of the logical aspect outside of the creative, right? Creative is more of out of nowhere, kind of a faith-based, I don't mean religion, but when you do stuff by faith, you don't do it you might do it based on a little bit of experience, but doing something based on faith is belief in things not seen, right? I get up and I go to work and I drive in my car. I don't know if I'm going to crash on the road today, but I have faith. I've done it before. It's not going to happen, right? I don't know if I'm going to keep my job. At the end of the day, I'm going to have my job at the end of the day, end of the week, month, whatever. I'm going to get paid, but I have faith, right? I haven't seen it happen. I don't know for sure if it's going to happen, but based on what has happened, I kind of feel, or I have the faith that it will happen again, right? So critical, creative thinking is more open-ended. It's not as assured type of thinking as critical thinking or logical thinking or rigorous scientific empirical thinking, right? Creative, and then the intuitive is a real leap of logic, right? Einstein says intuition is everything. He says you can do all the reading and researching and knowledge garnishing or gaining you want, right? Acquiring. But ultimately, when you look for a solution, especially with complex systems, you just kind of have to go with a leap of faith. There's that word again, right? And that's why Einstein said in order to find solutions, you have to use that intuition, right? You can't just keep working. You're never going to learn it all. You're never going to know it all. You don't have the time. You're not going to live that long. Your brain doesn't have that much capacity, right? So sometimes you just have to have an intuitive leap of faith that you'll create a solution based on all that critical thinking, logical thinking, rigorous thinking, empirical thinking that you've done at the outset. Does that make sense? I think I've kind of covered a lot of what he's covering here, right? He's got, what does he got here? Well, let us trace thinking man through the 5 evolutionary steps through which we believe he has traveled. The mineral period, vegetable period, animal period. I don't know if that's a pseudoscience. I've forgotten about that stuff. But last paragraph, to make use of creative thought. Oh, I know I was going to look up. Hold on a second. Talk among yourselves. I'm looking for. I wanted to have a better explanation. I said inside out, outside out, outside in. Inductive reading is bottom up. Bottom, I say bottom up, top down, right? Now, here it is. It takes you from inductive reading, takes you from the specific to the general, right? All, let me go. Bob is John, Bob is a man, right? And then you go to the more general. Men are, working your way up to the most general, right? Men are, or you go from the most general, women are generally, then you work down to the more specific. Susan is, right? So it's inductive, takes you from specific to general, in, going out, and then deductive is out, going in. Does that make sense? Anyways. What do we got here? A lot of stuff. Well, I started reading that, right? To make use of creative thought, one must work very largely on faith. There it is. Not oops, right? Like I've been saying, right? Which is the chief reason why more of us do not indulge in this sort of thought. True. The most ignorant of the race can think in terms of deductive reasoning in connection with matters of a purely physical and material nature, but to go to a step higher and think in terms of infinite intelligence is another question. The average person is totally at sea. The moment he gets beyond that, which he can comprehend with the aid of his 5. Yeah, this is the empirical stuff. Empirical means I must be able to touch it, taste it, smell it, see it, right? I'm not going to just imagine it, right? That type of thing. It's not going to just be based in faith or imagination, right? That type of thing. Infinite intelligence works through none of these agencies, and we cannot invoke its aid through any of them. How then may one appropriate the power of infinite intelligence? The answer is through creative thought, right? Auto-suggestion. Then again, subconscious. Then again, this gets off on a tangent that I don't want to go on. Infinite intelligence. He gets really into this infinite intelligence stuff. Again, not my concept, but I really wanted to get across the point that, being able to think accurately is huge, right? Accurate thought, right? And I'm not really, a good portion of what he has in the beginning of this is substantial, and I like what he has to say, but then he gets, I think, a little off, to the pseudoscience stuff, auto-suggestion, subconscious, all that stuff. What was the other terms he used? Infinite intelligence. That's kind of a, I guess you could say religious, sectarian. That's kind of religious, God, infinite intelligence, right? Expansive, infinite, endless, massive intelligence, divine, divinity, the divine divinity. I'm not going to go there. Don't go there, my friend. And I think hypochondriacal. That's a nice word. I think that's where we're going to leave it. You should delve deeper into the subject. Yes, there's a lot here. I like this one. Imagination will kill a cat. True. So runs the old adage. It certainly will kill a man. Or on the other hand, it will help him rise to the heights of achievement of the most astounding nature, providing he uses it as the basis of self-confidence, too. But I am not. Not going to get into summary of principles of all that. So I'm not going to get into too much more of this, but you get the gist of it, I think, right? And again, I mean, there's so much here. He's got over 72 pages. Oh, failure. This is a good one too. Was it the 6? You learn from all wise ways. Yeah, failure and how failure and fear he talks about. That's a good one to go over. I think I already kind of went over that a little bit at one point previously. So the next one is lesson 12, concentration. Always good. I'm putting together another presentation that encapsulates or shows, embodies all of these concepts. The law of success, 16 lessons, Ching Chu's toothpaste block heart, James Allen as a person thinking, you know, and a couple of other sources I haven't determined yet. There's probably 5, I think, altogether. I haven't put them all together yet, but anyways, so, and I'm going to do that presentation sometime in the future, but only so much time. I have so much to do. Anyways, we'll talk to you soon. We're moving forward. Just a few more to do, then we'll move on to something else. All right, talk to you soon.